Alright, so I want to make a video updating everyone as usual and then get into some other important stuff. So, getting right into it, Canada's up to 73,876 cases, 5,503 dead. Alberta's up to 6,515 cases, 125 dead, 1,073 active cases. So again, we went down by I think a little under, just under 100 active cases yesterday. So we continue to cut the active cases by more than the amount of new cases discovered, usually by about double every day. And even like I say, we're hovering around that 50-ish cases a day, 50, 60 cases. I don't think we've went over just over 60. I don't think we went under like high mid to high 40s. So we're very consistent. And like I said, the testing I think is going to continue. I mean, we're still testing roughly the same amount of people. I mean, the big thing to point out is that we have just 9 people in the ICU. And I know I've been talking about it a lot. I know most of the people probably watching this are well aware, but there's absolutely no reason why we couldn't be like 90% open right now. Like I say, the caveat, people, when I say, well, we should reopen, people take that as everything, and I think we should force everybody to go back to quote unquote normal. I don't believe that. I've never believed that. I've never said that. And the problem is people deliberately misinterpret you, so whatever. But what I mean by that is everything reopens. The people who want the old folks' homes, keep them quarantined. And the people who want to sit at home and cower in fear and still think this is the doomsday virus, go ahead, stay home. The problem why this is becoming such a polarizing issue is that we have one group of people who are forcing other people to adhere to their ideology. And the problem is their ideology makes no sense. It's not like they're forcing them to admit gravity exists or forcing them to you need to eat food if you want to survive. Like they're forcing us to do something that makes no sense. They're forcing people, the large majority of people, to quarantine for something that has a comparable death rate to the flu. This is infinite amount of times better than what we originally thought it was. The problem is in talking to some of these people online, they still think this has like a 4 or 5% death rate. They still think that that the quarantines prevent spread. Neither of those things are true. The actual death rate for healthy people under 50 comparable to the flu. It's almost exactly the same. Uh, and the quarantines don't prevent the spread. If they do, it's a very small amount. And I mean, the first things I would point out for people trying to debate that is, well, 2/3 of people tested positive for New York over the last week or so are people who are self quarantining. And like I say, so the hardest hit area, the clear majority of people testing positive are people who are self quarantining, which kind of flies in the face of the quarantining works. I mean, the other obvious things to point out too is states like Georgia's been open for a few weeks now, I think. South Dakota never fully closed down. Uh, Sweden is another example that's very polarizing in that although yes, Sweden does have a slightly higher death rate than the average, their average amount of people dead from this January 1 through now, I think it's through April actually, but it's still very comparable. It's a very average number, and in fact, if you go back 5 years, they're almost exactly on their average. So the idea that the keeping things open increases spread is not the case. It's just not the case. And there's other reasons too for not wanting to close things. And the other thing that those people, I know I've talked about it before, but I want to bring it up again because when we realize just how bad things are, I want to have it on the record multiple times. In that the keep it locked down or we're all going to die crowd, the Karens of the world, they largely think that the economy can just be shut on and shut off. Like they're the kind of people, they're socialists usually, or they're people that maybe they don't call themselves socialists, but they adhere to most socialist ideologies. And if you believe in those systems, you believe that the government can just hand out jobs and they have unlimited supply of money, unlimited supply of healthcare, all unlimited supply of everything. And you can just flip it on and off at a whim, and that's not how it works. I mean, it's not how it works by default, right? Like the government can't just do that. If they could, they would have already. So that's the problem with those kind of people. And I know it sounds condescending, but most of these people really are that. for lack of a better word, ignorant. They really are, because if they were, then they wouldn't believe what they believe. They believe what they believe for a handful of reasons. I mean, number one, I could say they're just largely ignorant. They're people that, they fell hook, line, and sinker for the BS they're taught in public schools and universities and the crap you see on the news. And like I said, they don't have critical thinking skills. And if they did, they would question the narrative too. Like, I'm not saying you have to agree with me. I'm just saying that the only way that you consider yourself as a good critical thinker is if you're constantly questioning the narrative. And I mean, I've changed my mind on this whole virus thing just over the last couple months, but yet these people still think that things are exactly the same as they were when we first got into this mess. So anyway, like that's what I wanted to point out. But it's like I say, we're at the point to where it's so obvious that things should be fully, or at least mostly, reopened. It makes no sense whatsoever. And like the one thing I wanted to point out is that I've given Justin Trudeau a fair share of criticism. He deserves every bit of criticism he's getting. They've handled it absolutely terribly. I don't think they could have handled it worse if they literally tried. We could have literally largely avoided, I would say, a lot of the outbreak and kept the economy open. We could have killed two birds with one stone, but no, they'd rather virtue signal and call people racist for being right, basically, and call people racist for policies that they would later go on to support. So again, that just absolutely crazy. But the thing I wanted to point out here is the provincial premiers. The right-leaning ones deserve their fair share of criticism too, and I want to talk about Kenny because that's I'm from Alberta, so um, he's losing a lot of support, I think, partially because he hasn't handled this well. I think people are kind of starting to he's kind of starting to wear on people. I mean, there's a lot of people that are just gonna that because the NDP is so bad, and I'm not saying that you should vote NDP or even consider voting NDP because they're absolutely insane. I think they're worse than the Trudeau Liberals are, and I think that's pretty easy to bear out. But um, he's losing support because they've handled this very terribly. Most people just want to go back to work. I've not talked to one person who's a moderate who's center, starts in the center to the right of the center at all, who wants to keep things reopened. Not or sorry, wants to keep things closed, even to a small degree. I haven't talked to one person online or in person, and that we're talking probably 20, 30 people. I mean, the leftists, yeah, most of them want to keep things closed down because, like I say, they want socialism, and one of the ways they view of being able to get socialism is if the economy completely collapsed, the government steps in and says, "Hey, we'll bail all you guys out. We'll give you socialism." So anyway, like I say, Kenny's losing support, and like I say, he deserves it. Like things should be reopened. Like there's no reason not to. I don't care about these stupid doctors. They've been wrong the whole time. And it doesn't take an expert in the field to recognize that we don't need to be that we should be reopened too. Like there was one point to where, hey, let's defer to the experts, but the problem is they've been wrong all along, and you don't have to be an expert to give an honest and unbiased and objective point of view when it comes to this. You really don't. The hospitals were not even close to being overwhelmed in the quote unquote first wave. The second wave is going to have to literally be 10 times worse than the first, which I think is literally borderline impossible considering how many people have already had it, and just how low the death rate is too. And considering it's the summer, it's not going to spread as well. So I would be absolutely shocked if there's a second wave that's worse than the first that happens with between now and like September. There may be a second wave that's as bad as the first next winter or sometime, but it's not going to happen over the summer. I'd be very surprised. I could be wrong, but I'd be very surprised. And like I say, people aren't listening anymore either. Like I don't know one person who I've talked to that isn't doing something, going out with their friends, their family, or something over this long weekend. Now I know a lot of people aren't working, so every weekend's a long weekend, but I mean this is one of the first weekends where it's been really, really nice, at least where I'm at. I mean, there's a lot of weekends that have been nice, but this is the first where it's been over 20 degrees both days, or it's going to be. So people don't care anymore. Like just open things, like just open things too. And you can say, hey, if you want to sit at home and cower in fear for the next month or two, go ahead. But when we reopen and when you look stupid for still believing that this is the doomsday virus, then you can come back. That is such a simple solution. It's not even funny. So anyway, getting to a couple other things here. This is a commentary from Global News, and they basically go on to say, I mean, in a nutshell, Donald Trump handled the pandemic worse than Justin Trudeau did, and he did less than Trudeau did. And sure enough, like I said, this is from Global, and like I say, I seen this like literally the same day, so I wanted to talk about it, and it's very fairly related. So keep an eye, keep or sorry, just listen. I'll talk about it. One has to wonder about the mentality of people. They attack Trump and claim he has blood on his hands for his response to the virus. Yet the same people praise Trudeau for his response, ignoring that Trump acted before Trudeau and he did more than Trudeau ever did. How do these fools rationalize their foolishness? Now, the problem with these people is that, I mean, number one, they just project all everything onto the right, which is why I say whenever they accuse you of something, it's just them confessing it, and I think that's how they get away with and rationalize their BS and all their lies and manipulating people. That they view calling someone racist, for an example, as, hey, we're just confessing that we want racist, because they do want racist policies. They want to bring the only immigrants they want to bring in are immigrants that are not European, basically non-white. That's basically what they want. Um, they want racist policies. They want to artificially give minorities jobs that they're unqualified for, not as qualified as other applicants. All this kind of stuff. So again, that's how I believe how they get away with their not having a terrible conscience, is that they view it as, hey, I just confessed to you guys that we're sexist. Like I say, they call you a sexist, and yet they'll turn around and praise Islam and um, implement policies that artificially prop up women and artificially push down men. Like I say, it's that's just how they get away with it. And this is the same stuff too. Like, I don't care what your beliefs are on Trump or on Trudeau. Trump objectively did more, and he did it sooner than Justin Trudeau did. There's no debate in that. There's no debate. And like I said, I don't understand these people. Like, I really don't. If I understood perfect, I mean, I understand it decently, I believe. It's just partisan BS. But if I understand it like 100% exactly what's going on, I would be a lot more popular. But like I said, I think it's just partisanship. It's just orange man bad. If Trump does it, it's bad. If Trudeau does it, it's good. And it's the same thing too, that these people, the states close the borders, and they say, oh, closing borders doesn't work. That doesn't help at all. But yet we turn around and close our borders. We force people to go into areas with borders. We force people to use artificial, the 6 foot border, the borders of your house. Those borders work, but the massive amounts of ocean between us and the rest of the world, or most of the rest of the world, no, that doesn't work. That's not big enough. That's not enough of a daunting task. But the 6 feet of nothingness between you and the next person, that's enough to prevent the spread. So these people have no credibility whatsoever. And again, I just wanted to bring it up too. And like I say, I'm not a huge Trump fan. I think that he should have fired Fauci. Fauci's a piece of garbage, if you ask me. Um, and he should have done more too. I think he definitely should have done more. He should be pushing the states to reopen, which I think he's done to a degree, but he should be doing it more. And I don't think he should act as a dictator and say everyone has to open up. I would say, if I was him, I'd say put out a press conference or whatever and be like, my suggestion is every state, maybe minus, New York, I would suggest reopens, and leave it as that. And the other thing that he definitely should be doing is denying some of these states that are going bankrupt any federal funding, because again, they made their bed. No one forced them to spend all this money, so they should be doing that. But like I say, criticizing Trump for not handling this well when Trudeau objectively handled it worse, and like I say, there's no debate in that. There's no debate in that. And like I say, it's just absolutely insane. Somehow these people somehow rationalize this in their head. This is from Tom Quiggin, and someone asked him on Twitter. They say, "What happens when Trudeau runs out of other people's money?" And he says, "Your taxes go up and your government services go down." And this is exactly why we can't have these left-wing, crazy governments that come in, because what they do is that they spend way more money than we have. They run massive deficits, and the economy's half decent, at least if you're working in the public sector. The problem is that it's unsustainable, and what happens is a right wing government. You can see this very clearly in Alberta right now. A right wing government comes in and recognizes, hey, we're spending way more money than we have right now. And sure enough, they cut some of these public sector jobs. A lot of them are completely unnecessary too, like completely unnecessary. The NDP, I believe, hired over 10,000 government, workers or public sector workers when they were in Alberta. I don't see how you can possibly argue that Alberta needed that many more jobs. The reason why they bring in jobs like that is that public sector workers much more likely to vote for the left. So that's why they do that. And when you artificially bring in that many public sector jobs, well, guess what? The private sector jobs are going to go down. The private sector jobs tend to be people who are more right leaning, which it's just such a simple concept. I don't understand why people don't get this. Left wing governments want more people to vote for them. It's such a simple concept, people. I don't understand why people have to debate that or try to debate that. The left does it because they don't want people to get wind of their Ponzi scheme that they're doing, which is the main reason why they don't like that. But um, there will be a time in Canada to where public services and government services are going to have to go way down. We can either bring them down a little bit right now, or they can go way down in the future. And if they go way down in the future, the left says, "Oh, we're all going to die if we don't have free healthcare." You're going to see what really happens then. Like I say, we can cut things a little bit now, or we can cut things a lot in the future. And like I say, the only way people say, "Oh, healthcare is a human right," or this, that, and the other is a human right. Well, no, it isn't. No, it isn't. Because if healthcare is a human right, then you have the ability to force other people to work and to provide services for you. Forcing other people to do stuff, regardless of what it is not a right. Rights are things that you don't have to force other people to do. Rights are things that you don't infringe on other people's freedoms when doing. Things like freedom of speech. I know we don't have it, but gun rights. You owning a gun, and if the left will argue, "Oh yeah, guns kill people. That's not a human right." And free speech is hate speech. You can't have that. Well, first of all, like I say, there's no such thing as hate speech. Hate speech can't be violent. And like I say, increased gun ownership doesn't increase crime. So those are both terrible arguments. But like I say, mark my words, Canada at some point taxes are going to have to go way up, and/or government services are going to have to go way down. Now, taxes will go up before government services go down. They'll milk it for every last penny we got, and they'll raise taxes first. Like I say, they'll be, "Oh, the evil rich. We need to raise taxes on the evil rich. That's the only reason why you guys can't have your free stuff is that the evil rich." They have what, 50, 60% marginal tax rates right now. That's not enough. We need to go to 80, 90%, and then 95, and then the rich will either leave the country or be taxed into oblivion. To where they don't make anything anymore, and all of a sudden the money for these public services will go away, and we'll have to run massive deficits, even massive or even bigger than the currently big ones, and then everything goes belly up eventually. So take that for real. The last thing here, this is from Paul Joseph Waltz, and he goes on to say, Professor Carol Sikora, an NHS consultant oncologist, believes there could be 50,000 excess deaths from cancer as a result of routine screenings being suspended during the lockdown in the UK. And this is what I've been pointing out for over a month now, that more people will die from keeping things shut down than people from the virus. I guarantee it. Now the problem is a lot of this is it's not as easy to measure. Like, it's easier to measure someone dying from the virus, even though they still kind of mess with those numbers. But it's a lot easier to measure that. The problem is that it's almost impossible to measure the amount of people that are going to die from the lockdown. You can see in Alberta they have a 2-year surgery backlog right now, or estimated. You're telling me that's going to go, you're telling me, if I need a hip replacement or a knee replacement, I'm going to have to wobble around for 2 years on that. It probably will just make the problem worse. And a lot of these quote unquote elective surgeries aren't necessarily elective. Like, if you don't get them at some point, you're going to die sooner than you would have otherwise. And that's not even including the suicides. And that's the thing too, is that the debate isn't just which one's going to kill more people. The debate is just how hard are you willing to crash the, or how much are you willing to crash the economy to save the small amount of people. And my answer is very little, like literally very little. Like I would say, when this thing first started, I was assuming this will be 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks max, and we'll be back. The economy will take a hit, which it was going to anyway, but now it's going to take a massive hit. And it's like I say, when we come out of this with 25% unemployment, people are going to, I mean, a lot of people won't because they're so brainwashed by the media and so dumbed down. But anybody with half a brain is going to laugh that we brought on the suffering that's going to come from 25% unemployment, just to save the lives of maybe 100 people in Canada, maybe 200. So again, that's basically I've been pointing out stuff like this for a long time, but I want to keep doing it because a lot of people are still very asleep when it comes to this kind of stuff. So anyway, if you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. Check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. I appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe. And last couple things, as always, check out my Twitter if you haven't already. Again, just got Twitter, follow me there. And I also have my BitChute too. Everything's in the description. Check it all out there.